Hey guys, okay, so here we are. This is some of the classwork we did today. Remember on the back you're just going to do the odds, but here we're going to look at number 8, and in number 8 do I have an apothem or a radii? Well, they've given me a radii for that shape. Now there are a couple of ways we can do this. Remember, if we draw in all of the other radii and we draw in our apothems, okay, all these apothems are going to be the same length. I know that that's kind of hard to believe, but that's true. Okay. In this problem, I've got to have the apothem to find the area and the perimeter. To find the perimeter, I have to know the length of the side. So I'm going to find the apothem, and I'm going to find one of these little pieces on that. So from here to here, I'm trying to find that side of this right triangle. And I threw my colored pencils on the floor. And I know I'm going to need them. Let me get them. So we're going to be finding the side of this shape here. So we have to know this piece, and we have to know this piece. But the bad news is they gave me something that doesn't really help me. They gave me this piece, and that piece is 12. So, you know, I can't use that to find the perimeter. That's not going to help me there. And the only way it's going to help me is to help me find the apothem and the, excuse me, and the side here, the longer leg of this triangle. So one thing I'm going to do is we have to figure out what is this angle, or we can figure out what is this angle. I like to focus on this angle up here. I just think it's easier. Some people prefer to find that angle. I'll show you how to do it both ways, and then you guys will go to a separate sheet of paper and do the trig problems. Okay. I know that this whole circle here is 360 degrees. How many equal parts am I cutting 360 into? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 360 divided by 6 gives me 60. I know that angle right there is 60 degrees. So then I can find out what that one is. But some of you might be saying, Mrs. Stickler, I still don't, what if I didn't want to find that one? What if I want to find this one instead? Well, I know that this is a triangle. What do all of my angles in a triangle add up to? 180 degrees. Each of those angles can tell you, you know, we know this and this and this. Each of them are 60, and so I know half of 60 is 30. You may also remember that this is a perpendicular on altitude, and there's some things that if we went back to that chart, we know that this is 2/3 of that, so I know this has to be a certain length, but I don't want to go into that right now. Okay. So I'm going to focus here using trig when we're doing these problems. So let's look. Let's go back here, and I'm going to actually take this triangle and I'm going to draw it down on my paper using, and I'm going to try and make the colors match so that we can keep focusing in on that. So I'm going to draw this, and then this, and then that. And we know that this is my right angle. And let's color our legs. I've got a red leg. I have a blue leg. And I have a yellow. So that's that triangle. Now let's put our what we know. We know this is 12. And we found that this angle right here is 60 degrees. We also found that this angle is 30. You know, I'm going to focus in on the 60, but you could surely use the 30 if you wanted to. It's going to be a little bit of a different problem. So this is number 8 that I'm doing on a separate sheet of paper. So I'm going to cover this picture up because right now I just want to focus in on finding my A, the apothem, and this side. I'm going to call it X. So let's focus. Which one do we want to find first, A or X? Well, it doesn't matter. No matter which one I use, I've always got to have my H, my O, and my A because I'm going to be using trig. Here's H. This is my angle. When I put my finger on it, I'm touching the hypotenuse and the adjacent. So that's the adjacent, which makes this the opposite. I can only solve for one variable at a time. So my variables are a and x. I just want to pick one, doesn't matter which one. I know a lot of people like to solve x first, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to pretend like a is not there. So that means I'm going to be using O and H. And if you can't remember, your mnemonic is so, ka, toa. So O and H is the sine, and I'm using 60 as my angle of perspective, and that equals O over H. So when I cross multiply, I'm going to get x by itself. So I know x is going to equal the sine of 60 times 12. And let's just put that right in our calculator. What do we always need to make sure we check? We need to check our mode of our calculator. I am in degrees, so we're good. And I'm going to type in the sine of 60 times 12. So that means that the x side is 10.39. I'm going to keep my numbers to the hundredths place because my answer they want rounded to the tenth. And I always like to round a little bigger than what I'm going to end up rounding to. I hope that makes sense. So I know now that this side is 10.39. Now since I rounded that, I don't really want to use this answer to find A because there could be rounding error when we get to do those problems. So I'm going to stick here with the H. If you wanted to use the O, you could to solve for this last side. But I'm going to go back to my original answer that they gave me. So now I'm going to pretend like I've got no x. So I'm going to use A and H, which is the cosine of 60, and that equals A over H. Once again, my variable is in the numerator, and so I'm going to cross multiply here. So I know that A equals the cosine of 60 times 12. Put that right in our calculator. So we know the cosine of 60, make sure you close the parenthesis, times 12. So I know that A equals 6. So this side is 6. Now we can go back to our original problem. Let's take the information we found here and put it here. I know my A is 6. So I'm actually going to erase that A, and I'm going to put a 6 in its place. And I know this side, the blue side, is 10.39. Now, if I had tried to put all of this work right here by the problem, it would be a big mess right now. And I don't want it to be a big mess. I want to be able to understand what I'm doing on each problem. So I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to say the area of this triangle, because I don't have a base and a height, is going to equal 1/2 the apothem, which we found is 6, that's my A, times the perimeter. Well, this is 10.39, but that's only half of this one side. I know that these two sides are congruent because this is a perpendicular bisector, meaning it's perpendicular to the line and it bisects. And that is true because right here, this is an isosceles triangle. This is only true if you have isosceles triangles, okay? So this is 10.39. How long is this whole side? Well, 10.39 times 2 equals 20.78. That's this whole side from here to here. So that's going to go in as one side, and how many of those do I have? I have 3 of them. This is 20.78, this is 20.78, and this is 20.78. So we have 3 of those sides. I'm just going to put that whole thing right there in my calculator. And I'm going to use the decimal equivalent of 1/2. So 1/2 equals 6. The area is 1/2 times 6 times 20.78 times 3, because we have 3 of these sides. And what do we get? We get 187.02. Okay? So we know that the area is going to equal 187.0 when we round to the tenth. Now, I just want to point out that sometimes when we're doing these calculations, we can get a little bit of rounding error. If I were taking a test and I was off by maybe a tenth or a hundredth of the answer they wanted to give me, like let's say that my answer choices were 187.1 or 342. I'm going to pick the one closest to this because there could just be a rounding error. So this is going to be our answer. Okay? That's what we do if we have a radius. Remember, I might need if you still needed this information that we did originally, please go back and freeze it so that you can see it. This is what we do if we're given a radius of a shape. Now let's look here at this one. Once again, this is another radius of a shape. So let's draw our whole thing. Let's draw all the opossums. There's an opossum, there's an opossum, and there's an opossum. But they didn't give me that. They gave me this side right here. This side is 8 square roots of 3 over 3. That is ugly. But I also need to know this piece. Why? Because that piece is equal to this side. And I need to know the length of a side to find the perimeter. So this is a right angle. And just like we found 60 degrees up here as that angle, we would do it the same way. And so now I'm going to take my paper and I'm going to copy it down and I'm going to do the problem again. So we know number 9 down here. I'm going to draw my triangle. So we're going to be solving here for an A and this X again. That's not 9, that's an A. And that is 8 square roots of 3 divided by 3. So first things first, we're going to do trig. So this is my right angle, so opposite of that is my H. Touch the 60, remember that's our 60-degree angle, and we know that that is going to be my A and this is the O. Do not confuse the opossum with the adjacent side. They're not always both going to be A. Okay, not all the time does that happen. So I want to solve for X first because you guys like to solve for X first. So let's do that. What am I going to use? O and H, that is my sine. So the sine, my angle of perspective was 60, equals O over H. That is an ugly looking problem, isn't it? I don't like it either. But I'm just going to focus on what are we doing. This whole thing is a quantity. So if I cross multiply my quantities, I know that X is going to be by itself. So X is going to equal the sine of 60 times 8 square roots of 3 over 3. Let's put that in the calculator. I'm going to put this ugly thing in first. I'm going to put 8 square roots of 3 divided by 3. And I'm going to get a decimal here. Now I'm going to hit times because I want to take this answer and multiply it times the sine of 60.